Welcome to Sunday Sunlight and Stories. Please enjoy the story and have a wonderful day.
Part 2. The Storm. Nathaniel and Thomas woke to another morning aboard the ship. As they prepared for the day, they felt the sunlight streaming through the side panels below deck. The warmth filled the hold, and even the food that morning seemed to taste better than usual. After eating, they made their way back up to the deck to begin their daily work. The captain soon came out and announced that they were finally heading back to England to conduct business he had long delayed. Over the months, both Nathaniel and Thomas had carried the ache of longing for home, and now their hearts swelled with happiness. They thanked the Lord for the blessings he had given, knowing they never would have come through these trials without his hand. The men worked with a renewed sense of joy. Even hardened sailors who had been at sea for years smiled at the thought of going home. Some had once fought in the Navy, others had spent decades away from family and friends, and many longed to see the shores of England again. Songs rose on the deck, and laughter followed. Nathaniel thought of his wife and daughter, wondered how he would explain such a long absence, and if they would even recognize him. Darker thoughts crept in. Would his wife still be waiting, or had she moved on? He quickly pushed those doubts aside and reminded himself to trust the Lord. Thomas's hopes were different. He had been a blacksmith's apprentice before the voyage, but during their months at sea, he had learned more of the trade, often working with the ship's smith. He had picked up new techniques and refinements that he never would have mastered otherwise. Though kidnapped and forced aboard, he had grown to respect the ways of the sea and even considered, in some quiet moments, the thought of returning to it one day. Both men no longer felt like outsiders. The crew had accepted them as shipmates, brothers in the work and struggle of life at sea. By midday, the sun rose higher, but a sharp, cold wind cut its warmth. The captain's eyes fixed on the horizon, where a black line stretched thin but unbroken. His face hardened. He had seen it before and knew what it meant. He ordered the men to lower the masts and prepare for what was coming. There would be no escaping the storm. The horizon darkened until it seemed as though a demon itself was driving the tempest forward. Waves turned violent, and the captain shouted above the roar, "This is no ordinary storm, it's a hurricane of immense strength. If you believe in God, you'd best start praying now." The crew sprang into action. Ropes were pulled, cargo was thrown overboard, and the carpenters braced the masts. Nathaniel and Thomas prayed as they worked, their voices carried away by the rising wind. The icy spray bit into their skin, and each gust tore at them like claws. Then the storm struck. The first wave hit violently, and men were thrown to the deck. Lightning cracked overhead, blinding white against the dark sky, while thunder rolled like cannon fire. Hail hammered down, stinging like stones. The ship heaved violently, timber shrieking as though the Dawn Star herself cried out against the storm. Another wave crashed across the deck, sweeping 2 men overboard. Without hesitation, Nathaniel and Thomas fastened ropes to their waists and leapt after them. The sea clawed at their limbs, dragging them into the depths, but they fought back, grabbing hold of their comrades and hauling them toward the ship. Salt water burned their throats, and every rope pull tore at their muscles, yet they would not let go. At last, with the help of men on deck, they dragged their brothers back aboard. The rescued sailors collapsed in exhaustion, whispering their thanks through chattering teeth. But there was no time to rest. The storm pressed harder, and with every passing hour, the men grew weaker. Ropes burned into their palms until skin split and bled. Some tied cloth around their hands, only for the salt water to soak through, stinging their wounds raw. Still, they pulled, braced, and fought. The carpenters worked frantically, driving nails into splitting boards and shoring up beams that threatened to break. The masts bent under the force of the wind, creaking like bones ready to snap. The sea showed no mercy. Waves rose like walls of black water, slamming down with crushing weight. Men were thrown across the deck, ribs bruised, limbs bloodied. One mast cracked, splintering under the strain. The carpenters rushed to reinforce it, hammering as the ship bucked wildly. At the helm, the captain fought the wheel until his arms trembled. At last, he released it, shouting, "Let her run. May God be with us." His voice carried desperation and something new, a trace of faith, kindled by the quiet strength he had seen in Nathaniel and Thomas. The hours stretched like days. Some men slumped against the rail, near collapse, only to be driven back to their feet by the next surge of water. Their faces were pale, lips blue from the cold, but their eyes still burned with determination. They clung to the ship and each other, unwilling to surrender to the sea. And then, through the endless gray, a light broke across the horizon. It was faint at first, barely more than a glimmer, but to weary eyes it shone brighter than the sun. The men stared, and hope returned for the first time in hours. The carpenter rallied, calling for tar to seal the leaks. Sailors hauled ropes tighter, refusing to let the ship fall apart. Nathaniel and Thomas, exhausted but unbroken, found fresh strength in the sight. The storm still raged, the waves battered, but now the men believed. The light promised the darkness would not last forever. With bloodied hands and trembling bodies, they pressed on, together. And though the sea sought to claim them, they endured, for the storm had met men who would not bow.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Sunday Sunlight and Stories. I hope today's time together gave you a little more light, a little more peace, and something good to carry into your week. If you enjoyed what you heard, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Your support helps us keep bringing you uplifting stories every Sunday. Until next time, may your days be filled with sunlight and hope. Thank you for joining us.